Picture this. You are standing in the Egyptian Museum in Cairo. In front of you is perhaps the most famous object in the entire world, the funeral mask of King Tutankhamun. It is blindingly beautiful. 24 pounds of solid gold, beaten and polished into the likeness of a boy king who died over 3,000 years ago. When we look at this mask, our eyes are instantly drawn to the gold. We are obsessed with the shine, the wealth, the idea of a golden age. But today, I want you to ignore the gold. I want you to look closer. Look at the eyebrows. Look at the outline of the eyes. Look at the stripes running down the Neem's headdress. They aren't painted. They are inlaid with a stone, an intense, deep, celestial blue stone called Lapis Lazuli. Now, here's the mystery that should keep you up at night. Ancient Egypt was rich in many things. They had gold mines in Nubia. They had limestone, granite, and sand. But they did not have Lapis Lazuli. In fact, the entire region, the Middle East, the Mediterranean, the Nile Valley, was completely empty of this stone. So, where did it come from? To find the answer, you have to leave Egypt. You have to leave the pyramids in the heat of the desert. You have to travel 2,500 miles east, crossing the treacherous lands of Mesopotamia, through the plains of Iran, and up into the terrifyingly high peaks of the Badakhshan Mountains in modern-day Afghanistan. That blue stone on King Tut's face traveled further than any human being likely did in their entire lifetime. Long before the Silk Road officially existed, long before Google Maps or FedEx, there was a Lapis Road. And the story of this stone isn't just about jewelry. It is the story of the very first global supply chain in human history. Let's transport ourselves back 5,000, maybe even 7,000 years ago. We are in the Badakhshan region of northeast Afghanistan. Even today, this is not an easy place to get to. The terrain is rugged, hostile, and unforgiving. High up in these mountains, there is a place called Sari Sung. This is the source. For the ancient world, this was virtually the only source of true lapis lazuli. Imagine being a miner in the Bronze Age. You don't have dynamite. You don't have heavy machinery. You have simple copper or bronze tools. To get to the mines, you have to hike up narrow, zigzagging paths that cling to the side of sheer cliffs. One slip and it's over, and you are fighting the clock. The weather here is so extreme that you can only work the mines for a few months each year. In the winter, the snow and ice lock the mountains down. This narrow window of time created an immediate scarcity. From the moment it was pulled from the earth, this stone was rare. It was hard to get, and therefore, it was incredibly valuable. But it wasn't just about rarity, it was about the color. In a world of beige deserts, brown mud brick houses, and white linen, lapis lazuli was a shock to the system. It was the color of the deep ocean and the night sky combined. It didn't just look pretty. It looked like the heavens themselves. The people mining this stone 7,000 years ago knew they had something special. They weren't just using it for themselves. They were extracting it because they knew that somewhere, far away, someone rich would pay a fortune for it. Evidence from the mines shows they were being worked as far back as the 5th millennium BCE, purely for export. So, the rock is out of the ground. Now the real problem begins. How do you move tons of heavy stone thousands of miles across some of the most dangerous territory on Earth without a single paved road? This brings us to the journey. We often think of the ancient world as isolated, little pockets of people who stayed in their villages and never saw the outside world. But the journey of lapis lazuli proves that idea is completely wrong. The stone likely left Afghanistan on the backs of donkeys or camels. It would head west, perhaps stopping first in the ancient region of Sogdia. From there, it entered the complex web of trade routes that crisscrossed the Iranian plateau. Here is the catch. The Egyptians didn't control the mines. The Mesopotamians didn't control the mines. No single empire controlled the entire route. This meant the stone had to pass through dozens of hands. Imagine the markup. A trader in Afghanistan sells it to a merchant in Iran. He sells it to a caravan leader heading to Sumer. He sells it to a shipper on the Euphrates River. Every time the stone changed hands, the price went up. By the time a piece of Lapis Lazuli reached a workshop in Thebes or Memphis, its value was astronomical. This supply chain was incredibly fragile. We can actually see the pulse of ancient politics just by looking at the archaeological record of this stone. For example, in Egypt, lapis appears in the very early dynasties. Then, suddenly, it vanishes. For about 200 years between the first and third dynasties, there is almost no lapis found in Egypt. Why? Did the fashion change? Unlikely. It's more likely that somewhere along that 2,500-mile chain, something broke. A war in Mesopotamia, a blockade by a jealous king, or a collapse of a trading city. The tap was turned off. We even have ancient texts that hint at this. There is a Sumerian story about a king named Enmerkar who is desperate to get lapis lazuli from a land called Arata. He essentially has to bully and negotiate to reopen trade routes just to get the luxuries he craves. And it wasn't just land routes. We have found chunks of raw lapis lazuli on Tarut Island off the coast of Saudi Arabia. This suggests that brave merchants were loading this heavy stone onto ships and sailing it down the Persian Gulf, risking storms and shipwrecks to get it to market. It was a global hustle, a relentless, high-stakes game of logistics that connected people who didn't speak the same language, worship the same gods, or even know the other existed. So, why go through all this trouble? Why risk death in the mountains and bankruptcy on the road for a blue rock? Because in the ancient world, lapis lazuli wasn't just a decoration. It was power. It was magic. In Mesopotamia, modern-day Iraq, lapis was quite literally the flesh of the gods. Look at the standard of Ur. This is a wooden box from 2500 BCE inlaid with shell, red limestone, and a massive amount of blue lapis lazuli background. It shows scenes of war and peace, kings and captives. The use of lapis here signals that this object is worthy of the highest elite. Or take the famous statues known as the Ram in the Thicket. These are intricate figures of a goat standing on its hind legs, peering through a bush. The goat's horns, the fleece on its shoulders, it's all carved from lapis lazuli brought from Afghanistan. But my favorite detail is from a musical instrument called the Queen's Lyre. It features a golden bull's head, and attached to that gold face is a magnificent braided beard made entirely of lapis lazuli. It's a stunning combination of materials that could only happen through international trade. The ancients believed this stone had protective properties. In the myth of the goddess Inanna, she descends into the underworld, the land of the dead. It is a terrifying journey. And what does she wear for protection? A necklace of lapis lazuli beads. The text even includes a warning about the dangers of the underworld. Don't let your precious lapis lazuli be split there with the mason stone. Think about that. The fear wasn't just dying, it was damaging your lapis. By the time we get to King Tutankhamun in 1323 BCE, lapis lazuli has become the ultimate symbol of rebirth and divinity. The gold mask represents the sun, the flesh of the gods. But the lapis lazuli represents the heavens, the night sky, the waters of creation. To wear it was to identify yourself with the cosmos. When Tutankhamun was buried, he wasn't just buried with local riches. He was buried with the fruit of an international labor force. The miner who froze in the Afghan winter, the donkey driver who crossed the Iranian desert, the sailor who navigated the Persian Gulf, they all played a part in creating the face of this boy king. We often talk about globalization as if it's something we invented in the 20th century. We look at our smartphones and marvel that the parts come from 5 different countries. But the story of lapis lazuli teaches us that the human drive to connect, to trade, and to acquire the exotic is timeless. 5,000 years ago, the world was already shrinking. A single blue vein of rock in a remote mountain range pulled together the greatest civilizations of antiquity. The blue gold of the Pharaohs proves that we have always been connected. The economy of the ancient world wasn't just about survival, wheat and barley. It was driven by beauty, by desire, and by the lengths we are willing to go to possess the stars. So, the next time you see an image of King Tut, look past the gold. Look at the blue, because that color is the color of the first global economy.